Okay, so this first video is just an introduction to what is meant by economic globalisation, because it's really important that you have an overriding view of what globalisation is and not just thinking of it as like free trade and removing trade barriers between countries. So in terms of the study guide, you need to be aware of what economic globalisation is, some reasons for the expansion of businesses across national borders, so what are some of the reasons why globalisation has kicked off, some of the impacts globalisation can have on the labour market and consumers and financial markets and the government, and then some of the economic, social and environmental issues associated with multinational corporations, and we'll look at this a bit more in class this week, and the impact of globalisation on and other economies and how that's affected them as well. These last two dot points, we sort of looked at the GFC in a fair bit of detail, so we're probably not going to have time to cover these last two areas. So rather than looking at those, we need to focus on more of the impacts of the GFC. So, in terms of the study design, the aim of this unit is to understand economic globalisation as a phenomenon which is not new, but that has contributed to a pace of change in the last 30 years in terms of the movement of global goods and services and labour across national boundaries. So we're all looking about how has globalisation expanded over the last 30 years. So what is economic globalisation? Okay, the strict definition of globalisation is the closer integration or linking together and interdependence of the countries and people of the world, moving towards one single market by removing all barriers to trade, investment and labour. So in terms of a definition, the key things to remember is it's about trying to increase the level of interdependence between nations and integrating the world's economies, and that's done via removing barriers to trade, allowing for more foreign investment, and then more labour to move across boundaries. So you don't need a word-by-word definition of globalisation, but thinking of it as the economy operating as one big market with all dependent on each other, where we can exchange goods and services, we can invest in foreign companies, and labour can be swapped between borders. So the emergence of globalisation has come from a whole range of factors, but it includes the emergence of international trade, it includes a lot more companies operating as multinational companies, so the existence of offshoring and outsourcing, the offshoring in the case of businesses moving their operations overseas, and outsourcing where we have certain services that are completed overseas. Increased investment between countries, so increased portfolio and direct investment are some of the main things. So this is what globalisation includes. So if you get asked, what are some 4 or 5 things that get included as part of globalisation, these are the kind of things we're looking for. We're looking at things like removing protection on imports and exports, so the increased trade liberalisation. It includes increasing foreign investment between countries, so allowing for more direct investment where overseas companies will establish operations overseas, or portfolio investment where people will invest in shares in other companies or countries. Increased immigration, so the government allowing more people to move borders and therefore move from one country to another. The establishment of multinational companies, which we'll talk about in detail. International division of labour, so businesses splitting up part of the production process into different countries. The cooperation of different governments in terms of environmental and political issues, so companies working together for things like climate change, just to discuss immigration policy and other key economic issues. It might be counter-terrorism. Outsourcing labour is part of globalisation. Communication through the internet. All of these things come under the umbrella of what is meant by globalisation. So it's not just exports and imports, it's including investment, the establishment of multinational companies, international division of labour, companies working together to solve issues, immigration, outsourcing, and so on and so forth. The 5 main reasons for the emergence of globalisation, and we'll talk about this more in the next video, is that lower labour costs for businesses, the opportunities associated with increased technology, the relaxation of government controls, and we'll talk about a range of those, the deregulation of key markets, and cost savings associated with economies of scale. And these things we'll focus on more in the next video. Thank you.